It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, December 6th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is asking the question for the Flyers: is winning a good thing?
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, we are going to dig into that, plus the latest Flyers news and news from the NHL Board of Governors meetings and your mailbag questions, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You can find us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, Louis Belpedio has cleared waivers, so he'll be heading back to Lehigh Valley. As of this recording, still no word that they're going to do any call-ups for the road trip, but we do have a little bit of time for that since the next game isn't until tomorrow night. So we'll see what happens there.
It doesn't look great, though. We have to say that it doesn't look great for having what you think you'd want to have happen. I would say that.
Yeah, I would say so. And you can debate whether that's good or bad, but whether it's happening or not, I don't know yet. We will find out tomorrow, I'm sure. But the other good news is that Oliver Bonk and Denver Barkey are both on Team Canada's selection camp roster for World Juniors. And I think it's to be expected, I think, in a large respect, but it's always good to see that on paper.
Yeah, I mean, Bonk is a lock. Their defense isn't that strong. He's having a great year. Barkey's the one that's kind of like he's going to have to prove it. There's plenty of offensive players there, so
Right.
he's going to really have to prove it. I think Bonk will have an easier path.
Yeah, it is really interesting because this is a year for Team Canada where several of the top guys that would normally be on this team are actually in the NHL and are
Yeah,
not getting, wavered to be able to go play
yeah,
in
Bedard,
World
Fantilli,
Juniors.
Korchinski, those.
Yeah, those are 3 big names that could have been, hugely impactful for Team Canada, and so I think the forward battle, to your point, is going to be very interesting
Yes.
to keep an eye on for that team. In other news, the NHL Board of Governors is having meetings right now, and I think, the biggest question that everybody has as far as the future of the NHL right now is the potential cap increase because, we've been working in a kind of limited economy here ever since
Hmm.
COVID, and with the whole escrow situation, and there had been a promise made that if the escrow got paid off by the players in this, by a certain time, next year's salary cap was going to be the big jump up. And the estimate right now is 87.65 million, which would be a significant increase from the 83.5 we've got now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good increase. It's, going to help most teams, but some of it's a drop in the bucket for others. Like, it's just not going to do a ton. It might get you a player.
I mean, that could potentially be a second pairing defenseman right there.
Second pair, maybe not with this new economy. Maybe a third pair. I don't know if you can get a second pair for 4 anymore.
Well, I guess it depends on who that second pairing defenseman
Yeah.
is, but yeah, I do think it's going to make contract negotiations a very interesting part of the remainder of this season going into the off season. Just hey, Carter Hart comes to mind, right?
Or
It,
Hart. I mean, a year after that, Konechny. Like, what are they going to do with Travis Konechny? Like, it starts to affect those kinds of things. Yeah.
right. So are existing players going to get a piece of that pie, or is it,
No, no.
is it all going toward signing free agents? Like, how is all this going to work
Yeah,
for
that's
all the
where they make
teams?
their money is on their next contracts, and they don't have
Yeah.
any more escrow, so they'll make exactly what it says on the contract.
So we shall see with that and how that affects all the teams out there. Some other topics mentioned. I think the other big thing to come out of it is that we have it confirmed. It was kind of rumored, but now it's confirmed that next year's NHL draft will be at the Sphere in Las Vegas, the new venue there that's got all sorts of special video producing capabilities
Yeah.
and video game like interactive quality to it. It'll be June 28th and 29th of next summer. And this will be their final full draft before they do this decentralized version of it, which makes me kind of sad. We've talked about that before,
Oh,
but
definitely, it's hard for me. I mean, I've been covering since '01, and now you're telling me it's gonna completely change, and I'm like, I don't even wanna think about it. I'm just gonna
yeah.
try and enjoy this draft, and I'll worry about it down the road, but I don't even wanna think about it.
What's your take on having it at the Sphere?
I think it'll be interesting. I think the big key is when you're showing somebody from name a team getting picked 24th overall in the first round, and that player gets shown on the Sphere, will people in town care? That's what you have to ask yourself because Las Vegas is a busy place. So are people on the strip going to stop and stare at this kid from Moose Jaw? I don't know. Like that's a big question to ask, and that's what I want. This is what goes through my head. Like second round, definitely not. But first round, when will people like stop paying attention when everything's on the Sphere? That's what I wonder.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to have that magnitude of, like, a kid's highlights showing up. I
Oh
think
yeah,
that'll be
there's no
super
question.
cool.
Like getting your picture on the Sphere is great. Maybe aliens will enjoy the show if we have aliens out there. I don't know if we do. I don't think we do. I don't believe, but maybe the aliens can watch the NHL draft for a change. I don't know.
Well, they're just right around the corner in Area 51,
That's
but
true.
I think that, the other part of it, though, is that based on what just went down in Vegas with the whole F1 debacle,
Yeah.
I think something as less intrusive as just the Sphere projecting will make everybody in Las Vegas happy, I
Oh,
gotta
it'll make them
say.
happy. It's just can you get them to care?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that matters as much in the grand scheme for the lower round stuff, but I think the spectacle of it should be a lot of fun, especially, if we are decentralizing and this is like the last hurrah of the bigger version
I mean, the
of
last
the
hurrah being
draft.
in Vegas sort of makes sense. That part checks out. So I'll give them that.
Yeah. Other news, they're still in discussions about the Olympics, but the players want to go, the fans want the players to go, so
There,
I
there's no
assume they're going to figure
discussion.
it out.
All they're trying to figure out is the insurance and who's paying for it and who's getting maybe some advertising or merch deals, and that's it. That's all they're figuring out.
Yeah, we'll see if they can dot those I's and cross those
It'll
T's.
happen.
Our next opponent, the Arizona Coyotes, are finalizing the purchase of some land in the Phoenix area for an arena build. Fingers crossed that they get that solidified.
I mean, my
And
fingers crossed for Robin that it's not just another, hey, we're signing this thing, but nothing ever comes out of it, which is a possibility. So I saw Robin's impassioned plea, her video, and I get her feeling about it. But there's also this other feeling that you can't shake that, hey, just because you sign a land deal doesn't mean you're going to be able to develop what you want on it.
Robin is our friend over at Locked On Arizona Coyotes. We will put a link to that impassioned plea in the show notes so you can
Yeah.
see it for yourself. And one other bit of news, the IIHF is going to mandate neck guards for all levels of their competition. They don't have a date for it to go into effect due to the current supply issues, because obviously the
Yeah.
demand for it went up. Even some NHLers can't get them quite yet.
Right.
So I think they're going to wait for the supply issues to level out before they
No, and that's fair.
absolutely, yeah, before they absolutely mandate it. But I think it's a good thing across the board.
Every mother of a hockey player out there is a little happier today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We are going to ask that loaded question that we asked up front. Is winning good for the Flyers? And I think there's some interesting discussions to be had around that question. We will do that coming up next. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They've got killer deals on last minute tickets, and with their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting excited for all the fun you'll have. My favorite part of the Game Time app is that it's great for getting notified about the last minute tickets. Plus, you can get that all important view from your seat. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and sometimes up to an hour after it starts. So it's the place to find those last minute seats. Also, the tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you're thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over and unders, and more. With the Eagles playing the Cowboys this week, I go with the over. I think that's a pretty good bet, and I think you'll see a lot of scoring in that game. We'll see. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get into the action this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
On tomorrow's show, we will be previewing the matchup against the aforementioned Arizona Coyotes. Plus, we will take a look at Flyers prospect Owen McLaughlin, a local kid from Phoenixville who was a 7th round pick in 2021. Looking forward to that. In the meantime, with the 2 wins against the Pittsburgh Penguins, who, to be fair, are having their own issues. Some might put an asterisk next to those wins. But with Per Torts in his post game presser after the second win against the Pens, the Flyers have gotten 5 out of 6 points in the last several games and are finding ways to win or finding ways to grab extra points. And, we've been sort of dancing around this topic of, is this a good thing? And there are some people saying, I'm mad that the Flyers are winning all these games because we want a high draft pick for Macklin Celebrini or whoever else they want in the upcoming draft. And that, we're in this rebuild and we should be tanking to some degree to get those high draft picks and, just start raking in assets and trade everybody. And the Flyers are in the mushy middle right now, and I think that, they're doing some really good things. They're doing some things that people have been questioning, but I guess just, like, starting here, is it good to even go there, to have this conversation at
Yeah, I think
all?
you do have to have it. I think you have to have it because you have to decide, like, are the Flyers for real? And, the Pittsburgh Penguins right now are a non-playoff team too. So you're beating a team now. I look at things differently. Yes, you did get those 2 points for these 2 games, but you didn't stop the Penguins from getting a point either. So if this were to continue against other teams later in the season, it becomes a mathematical nightmare. So that's one thing. I didn't look at their regulation wins. I should look at it because that matters at the end of the year, right? That's something where that comes into play in this argument. winning is good. There's nothing wrong with winning. If you're winning too much, you better be winning too much with guys that are going to be on your team for the next 2 or 3 years. That's my edict. And that's the part that I think they're getting wrong right now because Mark Stahl won't be there. Walker, maybe, maybe not. Sealer, probably not. There's a lot of guys in the lineup that won't be there. Even Travis Konechny, probably not, unless they're going to pay a big extension for him, which I'm not sure they're going to do. So you have to, and even Carter Hart, we don't know. There's a lot of ifs on that. So if they were to win this season, let's just say they win this season, they play in the playoffs, they lose in the first round, there's a little bit of benefit, but you didn't benefit your rebuild at all because you're going to be picking later. You're going to be wondering now still about a bunch of these prospects. You might not wonder about Forster. That's fine. You're probably going to trade Morgan Frost. You're still going to wonder about Zamula. Like, there's going to be more questions than answers, this, especially late in the season when they're not going to bring up these guys when you're winning. So that's, you have to now decide, is that something you want or not, or don't want as a fan?
Right. And that's where I start to wonder, does draft position matter as much if the Flyers are going to have those 2 first round picks as we think will turn out in the end, that they're going to get 2 quality prospects, assuming they pick well, no
Oh,
matter what, because
assuming they pick well is about 40 or 45% of the assumption there.
right. But I think everybody kind of has the same odds in terms of, are they going to pick
No,
well or not? Like,
I don't agree with that.
I think
Some
within
teams
a
do it
certain
better.
range.
Some teams do it better.
Yeah.
We have to acknowledge that.
I guess, but if we have like something around 10 or 12 for the first pick and then
Uh-huh.
something around 20 for the second pick, like,
Well, there's a
wouldn't
big
you want
difference. I will
but
say this.
wouldn't you want all the winning and that versus maybe one good pick and develop nobody?
Okay, so there is a difference because I'm starting to develop my list, and it won't be the same exactly from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We know that, but there's a difference between 10 and 12. Like, after that top 10, there's a difference. Now, it's not a difference of you might get a bad player, but it's a difference of you might not get a franchise player. And so again,
Right.
when we look around at the Flyers, they may have 2 franchise players and Gauthier and Michkov, but odds are maybe only one of them is a franchise player. And franchise player means Claude Giroux, that kind of
Yeah.
success. Like,
Yeah.
one of the best you've had in the last 10 years. That's a franchise player. Even Konechny's not a franchise player. He's a really good player. So to me, there's that distinction. And so you have to look around the league and see how easy is it to survive. Because yes, even if you pick well in that first round, you might get, I don't know, a second line forward and a second pairing defenseman. But if you'd have picked in the top 5, you'd be getting a top line forward or a top pairing defenseman. There is some value to that, a lot of it, but it does vary. That is not a straight line because not every draft is equal.
Yeah, I think I would rather, though, have the weaker picks and have some success to build on. I think that getting a winning mindset and what the Flyers are doing right now is they're playing hard and they're resilient. And I like that. And I think it kind of backs up the argument that Torts was making, that we're in year 2 of this rebuild right
Mhm.
now, as opposed to
But they're
what,
not,
say,
because they're not even. I don't even think they've hit the rebuild yet. All they've done is gained assets. They're not acting like they're in a rebuild. I could say that much.
well, but I
The
think you could
team
say
is,
they're in.
the front office is in that mindset, but the team is not acting like they're in a rebuild.
Well, but I think that what they're doing is not bad. I
I'm
think
not saying
that
it's bad. I'm just saying they're not acting like they're in a rebuild. That's all.
well, how would you say, what would they be doing? What would the team be doing if they're in a rebuild differently then?
They'd be playing Mark Stahl a couple times a week. They wouldn't, there would be guys in that lineup that wouldn't be in the fourth liners would be broken up every once in a while. There would be guys who were sitting would actually get in who were young players. So like Belpedio wouldn't have sat that long. Torch just left him out there because he probably knew he wasn't going to use him, and didn't want to take playing time away from anybody in Lehigh, so he just left Belpedio out there. But you could rotate guys in that are young players, give them valuable experience, and have not be a waste of time, but they're not really doing that. Same with Zamula. If Zamula didn't have this contract situation, I don't even know if he'd play him anymore. So I think we have to come to grips with that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is an aspect of it that is missing right now. And it's hard to argue with winning,
Mhm.
in terms of athletes and coaches, and they want to win. And if the team is winning, it's hard to make the argument to make changes. But to your point, a rebuild would be playing some of the younger guys a little bit more and would be okay with losing a little bit more.
Right. I mean, hey,
And
if you're
I feel,
winning and you're rotating in your young guys, and you've got like 3 or 4 guys that are going to take a step forward for the next year, I'm on board. But it usually
yeah.
doesn't happen. That's all.
Yeah, I do also, like, talk about, the team that plays hard, and Torch says that all the time.
Mhm.
This team has heart and they play hard,
Nothing
and
wrong with that. That's good. He's
there's
done that.
yeah, I think that is a really, really good thing, and it's a good culture to instill, and
Mhm.
last year, like, I was not certain that they had instilled any new culture in the team at all, but I feel like it's coming to fruition a little bit right now,
Mhm.
and that feels good and something that is
Oh, that part's
sustainable
good.
moving
That's
forward.
positive. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering about, like, the wear and tear on some of these guys, right?
I mean, the legit questions you have to ask is, right now, Travis Sanheim's, playing a lot. He's playing 26 minutes a game on average. On average, his last year, which was more than he's ever played, was 20. The records are just shy, just a little over 30 with Chris Pronger. That's the record. He's getting dangerously close to the record. Can he do that for a whole year? Can Sean Couturier stay in the lineup the whole year? Can Cam Atkinson stay in the lineup for the whole year? These are legitimate questions that we don't really have an answer to. And we knew they'd be better with Couturier and Atkinson. Like, how couldn't you be? But
Right.
again, we don't have answers to those questions yet, and those are legit questions.
Alright, well, so far, I think the answer is winning is good, but we still have some questions about how the rest of the year is gonna go relative to a rebuild. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
yep, I agree.
Alright. Now that we've solved that problem, it is time to answer your questions in our mailbag, and we will do that coming up next. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You don't have to spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. You can do it all with Indeed. Candidates you invite to apply through Instant Match are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in search. As soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of those quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for those quality applications that match your must have job requirements. Visit indeed.com/locked on to start hiring now. That's indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today. It's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows like Locked On NHL covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube to subscribe. In our mailbag today are some really good questions. Mario asked us, now this is before the Noah Cates injury that he asked this, but I still think it's a good question. At some point, I would like to see Tippett and Cates play together on the same line if Frost is not an effective center for Tippett. What do you think?
Yeah, I would like to see this line, but the only change I'm going to make is I'm going to put Cates on the wing and I'm going to keep Frost at center. So, but this is the line I want to see. It didn't look like we were
Yeah.
going to get to see that before the injury. We talked about it, but I would like to see it. So if Cates comes back, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the three of them together would be good because I think that Cates and Tippett on the wing, to your point, would be a pretty deadly combo. We have a return questiony with the aforementioned Bingy Boodle on YouTube. Still love that
Yeah.
username. If the Flyers get a number one defenseman, can York, Sanheim, and Bonk be the other three that make up a top four on a team with cup aspirations? And how is Bonk playing for London beyond the numbers?
Okay. I mean, Bonk's playing fine. He's going to be a very good defender. He's a second pairing guy. So that's fine. Uh, when you get this number one guy, let's say he takes 3 years, and that's a short amount of time for a number one. Uh, then you're coming in 3 years. I don't know what York's next contract is. I don't. Sanheim's will be like in the middle, I guess, right? Maybe like 3 years left, something like that. And then Bonk will probably be just off his ELC, something like that, maybe. So it's possible, but the hard part is this young number one, he's really got to really be almost ready to roll at that point. And sometimes, even look at Owen Power. While he's playing really well, this is like his second year, right? And, it's not all perfect yet. So I think there's a chance, but it's hard to piece that together. But there's a chance.
Yeah, the timing is going to have to work out perfectly. And also, I think it's going to depend on if this number one defenseman is drafted or is signed externally.
Right.
I think, there's a big difference there in how that plays out as well. Ryan has a contract question for us. Does a player have to have a minimum number of seasons played at the NHL level to get a no trade clause put in his contract? Does he get to choose what teams he doesn't want to play for? And is it in the labor contract with the league? The answer to that is yes. You have to be 27 or older or have 7 accrued seasons to get a no trade or a no movement clause. No trade just means you can't get traded without approval. No movement means you or sent to the minors or anything without prior approval. And then you have those modified no trade or no movement clauses, which, some teams it's 5 teams in some contracts, it's 10 teams where you say, these are the 10 teams I'm willing to get traded to, or here's my no fly list of like cities I don't want to play in. Different players set it up differently depending on their hopes, wishes, and dreams. And some of them delay that going into effect. So you have like the first 4 years of a 6-year deal, they have a no trade clause, but in years
Right.
5 and 6, it goes away. That
Right.
happens pretty frequently as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of variations. I was talking to Locked on Blues host Haley Simon yesterday about this, and if I remember correctly, I think the Blues may have 11 of these kinds of contracts. The Flyers used to collect them like they were candy with Paul Holmgren, and it was bad. And Chuck Fletcher kept it going. And so you do have to be careful with these kinds of deals because while it's nice to have a player locked up and that player feels good about, they don't have to move and everything, it's not necessarily in the best interest of the team to always do this. You really have to hand them out carefully.
Yeah, and right now, the players on the Flyers that have that are Sean Couturier, Cam Atkinson, and Nick Delorier have modified no trade clauses, and Travis Sanheim has a no trade
Yeah, the
clause.
fact that Nick
Um,
Delorier has it is just mind boggling.
yeah, but I think that's like pretty good. I mean,
Well,
it's
it depends. I
it's
mean,
not
two
a
of the
ton
most
of them.
expensive ones are in that field. So it's better
Yeah,
than it was, I'll say that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so. And then lastly, Mark has a question for Russ. What is the best Flyers draft pick they have made in your time covering the team?
Claude Giroux. Like I was at that draft in Vancouver. I was doing a live show at the time. I rode the plane from New Jersey with Bobby Sanguinetti to the draft because like there was only one, a couple flights out of Philly going to Vancouver. So I happened to be on the flight. Nice kid. He was the guy I talked about. We know the story. But they went with Claude Giroux, and that was a hell of a pick, man. Like you can't do much better than that.
Yeah, I think that was just a really spectacular pick. And I remember that season that he played for the Phantoms and then
Yeah.
got promoted to the Flyers. And it was just
Mhm.
like, yeah, like we have got a good one here. Like
Yeah, I covered
everybody
his
could
early
feel it.
Phantom stuff, and I could see the hockey IQ, the just the way he thought the game was just so on another level. Maybe his skating wasn't super fantastic, but it didn't matter. Like he got
Yeah.
from A to B just fine. And so, later in his career, yes, did the skating become a little bit of an issue? Sure. But even now, he knows where to go on the ice. He knows how to generate points. He fires up teammates. He's very good at doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a legend. And I certainly hope at some point there'll be a banner being raised into the rafters with his
Yeah,
name
there will
on
be.
it for the Flyers. That will do it for today's show. Tomorrow we will be previewing that matchup against the very good Arizona Coyotes team, which again can't believe I'm saying that. We will be
Yep.
talking about Owen McLaughlin as well. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. Send in your mailbag questions via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I am Rachel. I'm at R Miriam on Twitter. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.